right. Let's go.
Hello. So I think I'm going to be on the other side of the argument with Marcus here. Yeah, I'm going to talk about some toxic flow and kind of in the context of an old economic paper about peaches and lemons, and basically show that toxic flow reduces welfare of non-toxic flow of normal users, normal takers. And so I have some thoughts about how we manage this on our protocol level and Bebop, and perhaps some of it goes kind of a little bit in contrast with the kind of ethos, maybe a blockchain of censorship resistance and so on and so on forth. I'm going to talk through that at the end. So the peaches and lemons in DeFi PvP arena, we spoke and heard a lot about MEV being good, about MEV being bad. My argument is that definitely MEV and any toxic flow is bad. So I'm going to talk about general kind of the definitions of toxic and soft flow, types of toxic flow, and especially the types of toxic flow that I want to talk about today. And then the peaches and lemons paper so Winchimid gets arbed, why do I care? And kind of then what's the solution? What's the solution to toxic flow or promoting soft flow? So the broad brush classification of flow usually looks like this. It's like dumb versus informed, or soft versus toxic. I really don't like the dumb versus informed classification. You can have like very strong view on positional directional trades that you have. You might be very well informed, but your flow might be very soft at the same time, right? You might be entering a long-term position. So I would kind of think about the flow in these terms. So by soft flow, I mean kind of PV term or peaches, and by toxic, I mean PvP flow or lemons in the words of Ikarov. And so generally the definition, they kind of ChatGPT sort of level definition of toxic flow is that it refers to trading activity that is adverse to the counterparty providing liquidity. And so from that respect, to be fair, I would argue that most AMMs, any flow in AMMs is toxic flow, because most AMMs, liquidity providers don't get returns basically at the end of impermanent loss and LVR and all that kind of stuff. But I'm not going to touch the MEV part of it. I'm going to talk about the non-MEV type toxic flow and give you some examples of that. So I run an RFQ, on-chain RFQ protocol, where the liquidity with the other side of the trade is always a professional market maker who usually would do DEX arbitrage and that kind of stuff. And they will provide a fixed rate with a guaranteed fill on the other side, which basically you can't achieve in an order book. You can't achieve that in an AMM, of course. And so basically they take that price risk by standing behind that price. And so there are a few examples here that can happen, well, apart from the different atomic orb, that happen kind of like outside of the blockchain space as well. And it's an orb against the same liquidity provider. It's an orb, it's kind of cross-venue orb, and I'll show you kind of how it happens with sitting on the so-called sitting on quotes, as well as slicing. And so some examples of that, I will demonstrate kind of what happens. In fact, this my thinking around toxic flow has been inspired by a single person who has been maybe a month ago or so, literally went to every single public aggregator API available. It was like LeFi, it was KyberSwap, it was Paraswap, it was Relay, I think. Basically, it was like pretty much every single one of them, and they came to our makers, this kind of through Bebop, but through kind of other RFQ platforms as well. And it was kind of like really created a lot of annoyance and kind of like useless work for all of us, because like literally, it was obvious, it was immediately obvious how it created problems really for the rest of the execution in the space. Just generally kind of for those who are not aware, direct queue systems work in a very straightforward way. User asks for a quote, a RFQ platform gets quotes from one or multiple makers at the same time. And the important thing is that the quote arrives with call data at a guaranteed price, and it would fill at in a guaranteed way as well. And why is that? Is because basically you're not taking the liquidity out of the pool. You're basically taking liquidity out of a market maker or multiple market maker wallets. So they take the price risk, right? But users get something really nice, which is certainty of execution and certainty of the price of the execution. So this is an example kind of how the routing works. So fairly small clips of about like 200K in kind of major altcoins would usually be routed to multiple market makers at the same time, and that kind of creates quite nice efficiency in terms of price-wise. So I'm going to talk through a few examples of the ARB that kind of people try to do sometimes. And it's really annoying. It really is like an absolutely zero-sum game, from the maker to kind of like some unknown in the in the wild. Please don't do this at home. It's really annoying to deal with this. We kind of learned how to deal with this, but basically, you get two quotes. One of them expires earlier, the other one expires later. One of them is lower price, the other one's higher price. You buy on with one quote. Sell with the other, and profit. Great. Like it literally created like zero value. It created absolutely just transfer of value of P&L kind of from one entity to another. Multi-venue atomic ARB happens kind of in a similar way, but you look at different venues. You might be arbing against sex, you might be arbing against something else, but the key thing here is like you take a maker quote, it's a guaranteed quote, you sit on it for like 40 seconds, 60 seconds, something like that, the market moves, you're like, okay, if the market moved in my direction, I'm gonna do this. Again, completely, toxic, kind of in a dumb way toxic as well, and annoying activity. Another activity is called slicing. So, like basically, if you code as a maker, you'd have like a book, basically, you spread a side, obviously, on top of the book, and it gets wider as you go down the size. I think every single, I work with every single solver out there in the market. They take liquidity from us, and I think like every single solver did it at least once, because like that's kind of like an obvious thing to do. But of course, you come in, you place a 100K trades instead of one transaction, like for a mil, for example. It exceeds the cost of hedging for the maker. The P&L is negative. You kind of provided the value to the user, but you shouldn't. Because basically, if you did that against an order book, if you did that against the AMM, kind of programmatically, of course, you won't be able to execute 10 times at the same price. Whereas in this case, because if the quote is fixed, in theory you can do it, but you shouldn't. So these are the examples. Why do I care? Why should I care? What kind of happens, and what does it have to do with peaches and lemons? So, quick reminder for those of you who don't know, it's a classic paper from 1970s that basically the context was the used car market, and the problem was that the sellers know the quality of their cars and the buyers don't, right? And so the buyers kind of go like, well, the car might be good, the car might be bad, so I'm gonna kind of price it somewhere in the middle, right? Like it's the price that the market would establish would be below what a good car would cost, and would be above what a bad car would cost, right? And so in this way, basically, he showed in that very famous paper that as a result of that market structure, the sellers of peaches, the sellers of good cars, get completely priced out of the market, and what you get left with is lemons, right? And so this is, and so the market degrades, and so this is exactly kind of what happens in this situation. We see this kind of happen immediately as some sort of orb like that comes in, right? Market makers would widen the quotes, or they would reduce the quote expiry to something, very short that basically degrades UX by quite a bit, especially in Ethereum. So basically, and like everyone suffers. And by everyone suffers, I mean like a few things happen, right? Pricing for large block sizes, and especially less liquid tokens, degrades dramatically on chain, because like that's where that pricing and that execution quality really shines. Users who require guaranteed pricing or guaranteed fill can't get this anymore, because maybe someone left, maybe the pricing's not good anymore, just because they widened to the point where they can't be orbed. And in general, new makers don't enter the market, because, to be fair, like if you look at the market maker landscape in DeFi, it's quite different from what we see in CeFi. And it's because it's hard, and it's because there is a lot of risk like that, right? You trade on Binance, and then you trade on Ethereum with a block type where the price updates once every 12 seconds, right? And you get wrecked in various ways like this. And so those kind of things are reasons that a bunch of people are just the GSRs, the jumps, those kind of guys, they're not really on chain as much as perhaps like the MEV native teams, for example. So that's basically why you would care. The pricing that these guys provide, and I mentioned that, is actually pretty good. We usually benchmark the pricing against Binance, and really, so this is like I think a Pepe USDC example, right? And so the spread is just a bit wider, like by a couple of basis points, right? And so after 10 basis points Binance fee, you actually can get a better guaranteed execution on chain today. But yeah, kind of like Orb and sort of Lemons really kind of jeopardize that quite a bit. So what do we do? And this is kind of like a philosophical thing, but also something that we do in practice. I do fundamentally believe that equal access means or requires both equal rights, but also equal responsibilities. Censorship or segregation based on proven behavior is not something that should not be a norm, right? So by proven behavior, I mean, if you are clearly coming into a market or coming to interact with someone and you're provenly kind of, it's proven by your behavior that you're adversarial. I see nothing wrong on the on your counterparty level to say, hey, you know what, I don't want to deal with you. And so from that respect, like, I think like we, talking about the censorship resistance and decentralization on all those things on the broad macro geopolitical level is fantastic and amazing, because, because like that's when we start censoring, people based on the nation states that they live in, based on the age and, like whatever other things, right? But, if you're not nice to me, I think it's normal to not expect me to be nice back to you. And I think that's something that, it's just kind of something that needs to be acknowledged. So, on our end, like practical mitigation steps to those kind of things, like what we do on our end, we kind of work with our partners across the ecosystem as well to promote more of that, right? Is segregate known and unknown sources of flow. If I know where my flow comes from, if I whether it's because I have a Telegram chat with them, whether it's because I can score their wallet in a particular way based on their behavior, where there's some ZK thing that tells me that they're a real person, whatever that might be. I will segregate the level of service and differentiate the level of service to those different parties, because this way the kind of like good actors will not have to be exposed to degrade, to the market of lemons. Generally, on that, we see that some protocols don't really like to do that because actually toxic activity, orb activity, bot activity, hackers activity, creates metrics, boosts metrics. So I get that, but I personally don't really, share those drivers. Another thing that we do is identifying toxic flow heuristics and restrict access. So again, there's nothing inherently wrong with that. It's pretty, it's just like one of the ways to segregate known flow from unknown flow, in my view. High fees. So another thing that was actually quite interesting, high fees prevent ARB. So we saw a lot of ARB on the aggregator free APIs that don't charge fees, but we've never seen it on wallet routers, for example. And that's because, wallets kind of charge from 25 basis points to 100 basis points. So basically there is no arbitrage opportunity. So if you really want to protect your protocol from ARB activity, charge high fees. So that's kind of another thing. And there was my one last point. I think just like stop designing systems that rely on ARB to function. A lot of systems, basically it's like, oh, great, like, for example, we're talking about, Marcus was talking about makers, right? Like anyone can become a maker. A maker needs to have an opinion on the price, not just the liquidity available, right? And this is, we had this bunch of conversations about this, right? And so, creating a pool or some sort of like place that has liquidity, but that does not have independently an opinion on the price, that relies on ARB to come and create the price inside that place, I think it's just inherently wrong, and it's gonna create more pressure, and it's gonna bring more lemons into the market, and ultimately reduce the welfare of the users. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Katia. All right, we're a bit late in time, so unless there's any urgent questions, we'd quickly. Okay, let's make it super quick, but we.
Yeah, I wanted to ask, do you think that some of these things are potentially market maker skill issues? Like, for example, if you quote like multiple small orders, you should probably increase the price on every subsequent order. Or I also liked your idea about equal responsibilities. Like maybe if you request a quote, you also need to guarantee that you're going to execute the quote or something like that. I think a lot of the when I'm kind of like listening to like MEV narrative and that kind of stuff, or have PvP in an order book, PvP and like in the math pool, like that kind of stuff, in the mem pool, that kind of stuff. I would put that into a skill issue. But if you're a maker who issues quotes, kind of expecting them to not be, basically the choices here are, and we looked at them, it's a very good point, right? We're like, okay, maybe a maker would only issue one quote of a size of a direction per block, but that means that literally, they will issue one quote, and the next quote they're going to issue is in 12 seconds time. So I think it's the kind of like it's on the platform level, kind of for us. It's on us to design. It's on makers to decide how they do it. Some makers are like that. Like I have a maker who wouldn't issue more than one quote to the same taker address in the same direction within one block, but that creates a lot of issues because if someone legitimately asks for the second quote, I have to reroute. Basically, it creates like latency, creates inefficiencies in the system overall. So kind of from the conclusion I came to is that I'd rather segregate the flow and have soft flow place and toxic flow place, and toxic flow is just not something I deal with. However, I can create the best product and the best execution for the soft flow place because that's actually the one that I care about.